Everybody. Aaron Schatz here, Football Outsiders. Welcome to the Football Outsiders live stream every weekday at 1 p.m. Eastern. Coming soon at standard time instead of daylight savings time. Oh, there's Rivers' cat in the background. Hello.
Yeah.
Welcome to the Wednesday Ask Me Anything show live over Twitch and YouTube and Twitter and Facebook and in the corner of the website in our little widget. And you can subscribe in all those places to make sure you get all of our shows. And want to welcome in Mike Tanier, as always, on Wednesdays. And Rivers McCown is today's special guest. Want to pitch all of our viewers before we get into the big news of the day. Want to pitch all of our viewers on our limited time offer to get FO Plus for only 99 cents a week with an annual subscription. That gets you all of our advanced stats, all of our fantasy football research tools, picks against the spread, fantasy projections every week. It all comes to you 99 cents a week. So be sure to go to footballoutsiders.com/subscribe and become an FO Plus subscriber. And then you can find out what has happened to our pick against the spread for Kansas City, Green Bay since the big news. Aaron, did you guys like my transition? Was that good?
That was. Did you have to go running in there? Because I had to run in and edit 7 different things. You had to go running in and fixing that pick?
I had to fix the picks against the spread. We had to fix the loser league roster. We had to fix the ratings that I give to EdjSports for their simulations. So Aaron Rodgers with the COVID. So there are multiple layers to this story. First of all, the football layer, which is Aaron Rodgers has COVID. Aaron Rodgers will miss this week's game. Jordan Love will now start against the Kansas City Chiefs. We have no idea who Jordan Love is.
Right.
Then there's the non-football part of this story, which is that Aaron Rodgers apparently was unvaccinated despite telling the press that he was immunized. And from all reports, acting as if he was vaccinated and not following all of the protocols that unvaccinated players are supposed to follow.
Right.
So which do we want to hit first? The football part of this story or the not football part of the story? And don't forget to all the people viewing us live, you can give us your questions in your comments. For example, Joey Sucks points out that Wikipedia says that Jordan Love is an American football player for the Green Bay Packers. And
thank you. We had that one coming, and I appreciate that.
Kurt Bankert is apparently a close contact, close contact. So the Packers have one quarterback for Sunday's game.
That's all they need. That's all they need. Kurt Bankert can do what he normally does, which is be here on Twitch streaming his video games, where he is a master of such things. But also, the Packers are right now +7 favorites. I just checked that recently.
Yes, the line moved from
1.
The line moved from Packers -1 to Chiefs -7.
Yeah. Right off the bat, and I guess we'll talk football first. I'm almost exhausted of all the vaccination conversations at this point. We shouldn't be, but it's been weeks since the Kirk Cousins story and the Carson Wentz story and things like that. There are additional layers to this, but it's almost wearying to go back to this level of egocentric, self-serving behavior and how shocked we are by it. So, I mean, that's why I'm inclined to just go over to the football and say, hey, +7. I might take Jordan Love +7. That might be a fun take on all of this.
I watched Jordan Love play his preseason game this year. The only game that he played, I think, because he got hurt, was against the Texans. And he didn't look bad. I mean, they ran a very run-heavy offense. He got some play-action passes off. He's obviously not going to be throwing the pinpoint deep balls that Rodgers has, but I think there's some promise there still.
Right. I mean, if you talk about your expectations for a backup quarterback, your expectations for a first-round pick in his second year have to be higher than your expectations for, say, Mike White.
Right. And I actually talk about this in tomorrow's walkthrough, and folks can see it, the different kinds of backup quarterbacks you get. And to preview it a little bit, there's the kind of quarterback that can get you through a month, There's the kind that can get you through a game, and there's the kind that can get you under the cap. So it's your 3 strata, kind of like the starter you can win, because of win with win despite. There's 3 times the backup quarterbacks. I would figure a first-round pick who's been seasoned on the bench for a year and had like all kinds of reps in preseason. I would say he's supposed to be a get you through a month kind of guy. Should definitely be a get you through a game kind of guy. Now, whether that's a game against the Kansas City Chiefs, and what the implication of that is, usually when you say get through a game, it's like what Cooper Rush did: get a couple completions, hope Kirk Cousins turns in the captain check down and get a win. But I don't think for 1 week, I don't think that this cripples the Green Bay Packers to the point where they have no chance of winning against a team that's been playing poorly all year.
The over-under on this game is 48.
That went down from 54.5, I think.
But these are 2 bad defenses. Like, these are not good defenses. The Chiefs have played better defense over the last couple of weeks, but they're a bad defense. The Packers are honestly also a bad defense. I don't remember exactly what their DVOA rating is, but it's not good. Mm-hmm. You could definitely see a shootout, like even with Jordan Love at quarterback, because the Chiefs' defense is bad, and he knows how to find Daniel Sorensen on the field.
Are you telling me I should take Packers +7 and over in a same-game parlay, Aaron?
I preferred it when I saw it as +8, but Packers +7 and over in a parlay is not a bad. Probably get good odds on that.
Well, we could, but my thing just crashed when I tried to do it here. So let me try again.
The thing is, you can't push on a parlay, right?
No, you got to get hands.
That makes him a little more hesitant to do +7 as opposed to +7.5 or +8.
Well, +7.5. Let me see what they give me. And over +285
for +7.5 and over. I like that.
Ooh, it's getting done.
I feel bad for Dan Sorensen, man. Like, there are a lot of players in the NFL who get roasted, but just because of his spot right now in Kansas City, where it's like obviously the biggest explosion of the year, I guess, for a defense, and then also it's holding Mahomes back. Right. Like there are a lot of bad players, and I've watched many of them weekly.
Every week, yeah.
who get toasted.
Mahomes is kind of keeping Mahomes back, though. I mean, the fact is, I've tweeted this out a couple of times. The last 4 weeks, the Chiefs are something like 25th or 26th in offensive DVOA. Mm-hmm. And even if you take out turnovers, they're like 12th.
Right.
So it's not just that there have been a lot of wacky turnovers and a lot of wacky off guys' hands type interceptions. They're also really struggling to move the ball. Travis Kelce is really struggling over the last couple of games.
Right. And you heard Mahomes made some remarks to the extent that, like, I kind of get bored just taking what the defense gives me. Well, like that's a problem because the defense is playing so far back so consistently that you can beat a lot of these teams, these second-tier teams, by just going into a more conventional offense. And I'll take what I get, not try to do as much hero ball type things. Now, I get it that he's been programmed for years to do more than that. But there's got to be some sort of like hand. And this is where Andy Reid was never really good after the Eagles had their first run of success, of reining everybody back and saying, hey, let's be a little more conventional. Let's maybe run it a little more. Let's take fewer risks. He's not wired that way. Mahomes isn't wired that way. And that's why we get some of these things where it seems to get worse before it gets better.
And against the Giants, of course, the most effective play was handing it off to not Frank Gore, the other Gore, Derrick Gore. Right. And then, these little swing passes to Damien Williams that seem to go for 8 or 10 yards every play.
Right. I mean, you're sitting back and the conversation, which has gotten silly on Twitter, is you sit back in two deep shell. Just sit back with 2 safeties. It's kryptonite. It's kryptonite for everybody. It's like, it's definitely kryptonite if you don't take those passes. If you take those passes and you get success with them and you run because you've got an empty box, you can have success. And the thing is, Andy Reid will see those things and he'll get reluctant to do that because he knows he has this high octane capability. And sometimes he forgets. It's like, maybe set that aside and work on it and see if it can come back after you've had success elsewhere.
Useful Baker says, so Mahomes doesn't want to be David Carr. I assume he means Derek Carr. And Derek Carr is actually throwing the ball downfield.
Yes.
Although
The next item on
Speaking of news, not to dwell on this, but let's just say that Mr. Carr has lost his best deep receiver for the rest of forever.
Yes, for the rest of forever, Henry Ruggs has already been released. A serious vehicular situation I think everybody knows about. Someone lost their lives in a crash. He was allegedly driving 156 miles an hour with passengers in the car. Brutal situation. The Raiders have released him. And again, going with on-field right now, Derek Carr had 20 passes of 20-plus yards this season. Only Tom Brady had more 20-plus yard passes. That's not air yards, by the way. It's like chunk plays. But anyway.
Yeah. But a lot of those are downfield. Those are downfield passes. Those are not swing passes.
None of them were to Ruggs. So right away, not only do you lose that Ruggs' ability to do that, but you lose Ruggs' ability to clear out for Waller and Jones and some of the other guys.
So I guess what Mahomes doesn't want to be is what Derek Carr is going to have to be from now on, which is back to the Derek Carr of 3 or 4 years ago. Let me change the subject here, because we should talk a little bit about the angle of the sort of the vaccination angle with Aaron Rodgers. I tweeted this out earlier today. If the team and the league did not know that he was unvaccinated, and he did not follow the protocols for unvaccinated players, I think he should be suspended.
I agree. This is dangerous behavior. This is dangerous, detrimental to the team behavior, like anything else. I mean, teams will suspend guys from being late to meetings and things like that. I'm going to lie to everyone and potentially risk the health of my teammates. Absolutely, I think a suspension will be warranted. What boggles my mind is that you can just sort of blue sky your way through the protocols right now. I don't know how. I mean, I guess Aaron Rodgers has the means to get a fake card, whatever. I don't know how he waltzed through the last couple of months doing whatever he wanted.
Yeah, that's kind of the scary part to me is like, obviously clean sweep, sure, suspend him, whatnot. But like, how did the NFL know about this and or forget about it on accident while they're watching him do all this stuff every week? It's kind of mind-boggling.
Right. I mean, my guess is there was a little bit of star treatment, nod, wink, wink for him.
Right.
Yep.
And it's like, whatever, no one can say anything to Aaron Rodgers in Green Bay. That's not exactly an open secret. He kind of rules everything there. And I wouldn't be surprised if he didn't have a card. He just kind of went through things and said, you got to catch me. You got to actually confront me about this. And no one was going to do it.
And I don't know who knew what. What did the league know? What did the team know?
Right.
If the team knew that he was unvaccinated and allowed him to break protocols, then it's the team that should be penalized.
Right.
If the team didn't know, then it's Rodgers who should be penalized. Either way, it's not that I feel like the league should be forcing everyone to get vaccinated. It's that they set a series of protocols for people that were unvaccinated. They said, if you're not vaccinated, that's cool. You'll play. You just have to follow these protocols in order to prevent the spread of COVID.
Right.
And if you don't follow the rules, listen, okay, bitter Patriots fan here, but if you're going to be suspending people for allegedly deflating balls, you need to be suspending people for breaking the protocols on the COVID list.
Right. And people get fined for not having a shirt tucked right.
Yeah, if you're going to be fining CeeDee Lamb for not tucking in his shirt.
Right.
Yeah. Right. Let's take questions. And of course, you can always ask questions in the AMA. It's the AMA on Wednesday. We'll take all your questions. Who would you start at flex in a PPR league? Elijah Mitchell, Damien Harris, Tyler Lockett, or T. Higgins? Well, we'll start with the fact that, of course, fantasy questions are better for Scott Spratt on Tuesdays and Fridays, but I'll take them. And I believe that the Seattle Seahawks are on bye.
Yes, I think so. There's one out the door.
So we just took care of Lockett.
Yes. Elijah Mitchell had no catches. Now, of course, he has rushing value, but no catches last week. I think only has 4 or 6 catches on the year. So I'm reluctant on him.
I will tell you.
Damien Harris doesn't really get that many catches either, does he?
No, he doesn't really get that many catches.
Right.
He seems like the most likely to score a touchdown.
Right.
I will tell you, our projections have Harris and Mitchell tied, and both of them higher than Higgins in a PPR league.
Okay.
I would go with Damien Harris. I really like the Patriots' chances against the Panthers this week.
Right. One thing I did notice watching the San Francisco game, Garoppolo with 2 quarterback powers. at the goal line. Kyle Juszczyk gets a carry at the goal line.
I know, wild. If you're going to put that stuff in and yet you're not playing Lance, like, that's weird.
Right.
Is it an expectations game? Is it the idea that they're not going to expect that with Garoppolo on the field?
I think that's what it was. And both times he had like a clear shot. Like it was not schemed up to stop the awesome Jimmy Garoppolo running threat. But it looked like they were trying to avoid giving Mitchell the ball. Maybe it's like one of those, rookie at the goal line, we're worried he's going to fumble there. I don't understand it. But that would make me think, as opposed to Damien Harris, who I think they trust in more of a variety of situations, more experienced player.
Yeah, I'm going to also pick Damien Harris here and Elijah Mitchell playing the Cardinals. They have a pretty good run defense.
Okay.
Yeah, so we're going with Damien Harris. We're there. Brian Knowles says the first rushing touchdown for Garoppolo looked like a blown play. The second was just Shanahan trolling.
Thank you, Brian. I love it.
They do that.
Todd Singer says to Mike, can you give us a sneak preview of the victimization index regarding my coach called a screen pass from the end zone with the game on the line?
My coach keeps calling running plays, and I want to throw the ball. I want to throw the ball because it's not like Jonathan Taylor has kept us in the game for a couple of weeks. This is about me. So I'm going to check out of them, and I'm going to throw the ball during RPOs. And, you can throw a screen pass from the goal line. It's like, what a terrible call that is. First of all, you're calling things like that because you're protecting Carson Wentz from making a lot of decisions. Secondly, Carson Wentz knows he's in the end zone. He can throw the ball at the feet of a receiver. I've seen every quarterback in the history of ever throw the ball at the feet of the receiver on the screen pass in a situation like that. Carson had to pump fake that and try to make something happen. So there is no victimization index this week because of a Thursday night game. So we all get to watch this and Carson get vindicated against the Jets properly. But it would be something along those lines. How dare my coach call RPOs when all I want to do is throw?
I like the Jet. It's 10.5 at this point.
Keeps moving. It was 14 a couple of weeks ago, and I think I was tweeting about.
And then Mike White happened.
Yes. And then Carson Wentz happened again, and people got to see a longer look at him. But I don't know because the Colts DVOA
is shocking.
Like, and I see that their run defense is in fact very strong. We saw that this week. Their running game is very strong, although I don't have the DVOA in front of me.
It's like 12th.
Okay. I think their special teams are strong overall, despite having had to make changes at kicker.
Special teams are average.
Okay. But that high, and I guess, and the passing.
I know it's weird. Their passing game is a little below average.
Right.
And their pass defense is a little below average. I think one thing is teams are just running against them a lot, despite the fact that their run defense is so good.
Right.
So like the ratio is skewed.
Mm-hmm.
Well,
like teams run against them a lot. Like it's not like they've been blown out and teams are running out the clock against them.
Nope.
Their losses, a couple of their losses are close losses. So it's not like this is a clock thing, right?
Right. But it's Titans twice and Ravens. So these are teams just going to run the ball at you. That's their philosophy. Yeah. That might be.
And the Colts just have a really, really good run defense. And so if you keep running at them, that means there's more running plays in the sample, and they're really good on run defense.
Right.
And Todd Singer says the Colts offensive line is healthier now, so their running game should trend up. I think that's true.
That's true. They were getting
Wentz has been better. Wentz has been much better, I think, than expected.
Yeah.
Until those last couple of plays against the Titans. He only has like 4 picks this year, and 2 of them just were those 2 plays in the Titans game that looked terrible.
Well, he also is getting a lot of credit for all those defensive pass interferences that just happened to come on underthrown balls, isn't he?
Right. Well, I mean, there is a strategy to that.
Yeah, I don't think they're following it, but there is a strategy.
That's not design. That's
right. One thing I was going to ask you about that, when DVOA, does it look at things like I stand in my own end zone and throw a pick six, or I throw a shovel pass for an interception? Does it look at like super high leverage interceptions?
Yeah, because the way that the interception penalty is that it does not judge you based on the return of the interception.
Okay.
It does every interception with the average return based on where the line of scrimmage is and where the interception was caught.
Okay.
And the average return of an interception thrown from your old goal line, thrown 2 yards down, is very bad.
Yes. Yes.
So it doesn't matter what the actual return was, but since the average of all interceptions in that situation are very, very bad,
Mm-hmm.
it knows that is a much worse interception than 3rd and 15 and I throw the ball 40 yards downfield is a very different. It knows that those are two very different interceptions.
Right, because that's what I was curious about. And it doesn't look at them and say, "Well, that's not repeatable." So it's not that kind of thing. Like that's just a fluky type of thing.
No, it doesn't see that as a fluky type of play. What it sees as a fluky type of play is if you arm punt, like from your own 20, and you throw it 40 or 50 yards downfield on a 3rd and 15, and that thing gets returned for a touchdown.
Okay.
Because normally the fact is that an arm punt interception like that is not going to have a 60 or 70-yard return.
Right.
And I don't want to be penalizing offenses because they can't tackle well.
Right.
Right. I feel like that's something that's not going to be a big deal going forward.
Right.
So instead, we measure that interception based on the average return, which is, 7-8 yards.
Okay.
So where Wentz threw that ball at the end of the fourth quarter, there weren't 7 or 8 yards to return it. Like, that was it. You couldn't even go longer than that because it was so close to the goal line. So
no. And when you looked at the fourth quarter, if you really go back and look at the fourth quarter, he is airmailing potential interception after potential interception. And he's in the drive before that, he's getting sacked, and it's like, holding penalty, roughing the passer, et cetera. The amount of, I think that there are a lot of plays that got taken back, or like he got bailed out by Michael Pittman or whatever, that we're going to see the next act in the Carson Wentz saga coming very soon. Until then,
do you think his play is going to decline a little bit?
I think his play is going to decline, and this might not be the best sample against the Jets, but I think in the long run he's going to start pressing because that's been the nature of his play in Philadelphia.
They only have 2 games with an offensive DVOA over 4% the entire season. That was against the Ravens on Monday Night Football, which included that long Michael Pittman touchdown catch where he destroyed the corner.
Right.
And the Jonathan Taylor 75-yard screen pass.
Yeah.
And then the other one was against the Texans, who are the Texans. So
yeah. It's their defense that's holding them up in DVOA. And I think the defense may be overestimating the value of turnovers.
Okay.
To be perfectly blunt. Like when I looked yesterday while I was writing the article, they're not that good. Their yards per play allowed and their success rate allowed are not commensurate with where their DVOA is. So some of it is turnovers, that they have a lot of them. And some of it is just, it's measuring every single play separately. So you have to really dive into looking at every specific play to see where they're getting the value from. And DVOA is seeing something. It's seeing something that the Colts defense has been better than just their yards per play allowed. But I feel like it hasn't been 5th. Right. I feel like that's going to decline.
Right. By the way, 9 interceptions, 9 fumbles for 18 takeaways, which is tied with Buffalo for the league lead.
But, I have to look at their fumble luck.
I'm looking up right now.
Hold on a second. They have on defense
13 by 9.
They have recovered 7 of 10 fumbles on defense. So there's some luck in there. DVOA has at least filtered that out.
Okay.
But they've lost 4 of 7 fumbles on offense, and they lost a muff when they were returning a punt or kick, which are, very rarely lost.
Yes. Yeah.
Royal Will asks, in a full PPR league, his receivers are Kupp, Adams, Mike Williams, and Lamb. With the Rodgers news, is Adams still a good play? Which receivers would you go with? Okay, first of all, congratulations on a really great draft.
Yeah.
You recognized that Mike Williams would become a more greater part of the Chargers offense than Keenan Allen this year. Good job. You recognized that Kupp would be the freaking king of the league this year. Good job. I think that the guy I would leave out is Mike Williams. Here's what I've found in the past. I found that backup quarterbacks tend to affect the second and third receivers more than they affect the number 1 receiver.
Yeah.
Like the number 1 receiver usually still gets his.
Right.
And Adams is kind of an extension of the running game there anyway, sometimes, where they just throw him screens or throw him smoke routes or whatever. So he'll still get plenty of catches.
Yeah.
Right.
So I don't think Adams, especially against the Kansas City defense, I don't think Adams is going to suffer that much from the Jordan Love.
And what is Dak Prescott's status right now? I just realized
Dak Prescott's status is unknown.
Yeah, it's so funny how that falls by the wayside when Aaron Rodgers is making news and all.
Kyler Murray's status is unknown.
So, yes, that popped up.
So, I mean, I think at this point we are expecting Dak Prescott is ready to start because they haven't said anything different. I think at this point we're expecting Kyler Murray, but there were reports that he had an ankle injury that was 1 to 3 weeks.
I'm trying to get a good corroboration that he is full go for practice as of Thursday. I'm seeing reports of this, but not by anyone whose name I recognize. So we will see.
So Royal Will, I like Kupp, Adams, and Lamb. If you have three receivers in that league, I would go Kupp, Adams, and Lamb. If you do 2 receivers, I would just go Kupp and Adams. Right. Murray was not at practice today, says Brian Knowles. Oh boy.
Is Colt McCoy getting the reps, or is
that would mean Colt McCoy is getting the number 1 reps? I believe he is the backup quarterback ahead of Chris Steveler. So we have Colt McCoy, we have Jordan Love. I'm glad I wrote something about backup quarterbacks for walkthrough on Thursday. I didn't know it was going to be this wild, but there it was. And of course, we have love child Taysom Hill or Trevor Siemian in New Orleans. Oh God, revenge game, please, Brian. Don't. Yes. The indications are Peyton won't say who the starter is, which I think may be a sign that it's Hill.
Yeah.
Like, I think if Hill's concussion was so bad that he was definitely out, that they would say that.
Mm-hmm. I agree.
But, I mean, he wants Taysom Hill, right? Like, I mean, definitely he wants to start Taysom Hill. He does not want to start.
Doesn't everybody want Taysom Hill?
All right. Well, I mean, if your choices are Taysom Hill, Colt McCoy, Chris Steveler, Cooper Rush, who do you like? I think we all would take Love, but like.
Well, I mean, the Falcons' defense is really, really pretty bad. So yeah, I guess I'm riding the Taysom train for this week.
Right. Well, I'll tell you, Hill he led the I don't say beat. He led the Saints to victory twice against the Falcons last year, and his passing numbers look normal. The one thing I need to point out is that Michael Thomas, I believe, had 18 catches in those 2 games, and. Yep. Besides the zone reads and stuff, the entire passing game was 6 offensive linemen. Literally, they put the 6th lineman in, drop back, wait for Michael Thomas to get open. So I don't know what else they have in the Taysom arsenal besides that and zone reads.
Joey Suck says Taysom Hill is just a modern Seneca Wallace. I never put that together until you said that Peyton wants him to play.
I liked Seneca. I mean, he wasn't good, but I liked him.
He didn't.
They never tried to make him a tight end, did they?
Well, no, he was like 5'8", so they would have made him like a slot guy.
Yeah.
The Falcons are making Felipe Franks a receiver.
Or sort of. Like, he's still also a third quarterback. Like,
yeah, it's very muddled thinking.
In the Scott Fishbowl fantasy league, I took Taysom Hill and Jordan Love.
Wow.
You take like 18 players.
Okay.
And it's a 2 quarterback league. So I have Rodgers. So I took Taysom Hill in like the 13th round, and then I took Love in like the 15th or 16th round, because that was back when we thought Rodgers might not play this year.
Mm-hmm.
So now I have to decide who to start as my second quarterback this week. Do I start Hill or do I start Love? And I'm leaning towards Hill because the rushing yards.
So wait, you just told one guy to start Davante Adams in his fantasy league, and you told me to take the over. But now, I'm not going to take Jordan Love. I'm going to take Taysom Hill instead.
Because rushing yards, man. Rushing yards are better than passing yards for fantasy.
I hear you. But
I think we're going to see the Falcons defense is not good.
No.
No, they're not.
Hashtag analysis.
I mean, it's a little weird that the Falcons are last in DVOA. Like the Colts, this is just a weird year for DVOA. There are a lot of teams where their rating does not seem to match their win-loss record. And Atlanta is another one. Like you'd expect Atlanta to be 27th or 28th, and instead they're dead last. And much like the Packers, they're really hurt by one week 1 game, right? That they got slaughtered by Philadelphia in week 1.
Mm-hmm.
If not for that game, they would be like 27th or 28th. So that's probably as good as they probably are more like 27th or 28th.
And that's what's buoying Houston, right? That they had a big week 1 win.
But a little bit. It wasn't a big win, but it was a win. The defense is just not
enormous. The biggest win you've ever seen.
The part of Atlanta that's better than our numbers think it is the offense now that Pitts has really come into his own. So their defense is still not good. So like Taysom Hill to get the rushing yards is pretty good.
Right. I think you'll see a little Simeon too. They were mixing and matching a little bit with Jameis and Taysom early in the season when they were having trouble moving the ball with Jameis. They'd bring Taysom in. So you might see a little thing where they put Simeon in for a series to be a little more conventional and to strain a defense that's not up to code in the first place.
And of course, among the big bits of news this morning, sort of lost in the Aaron Rodgers news, Michael Thomas posting on Instagram that he's had a setback in his injury recovery and he's now out for the year.
I thought he was anyway.
I mean, I know that when I did our projections before the season, I projected the Saints as if Michael Thomas was going to be out for the year because it seemed like he really wasn't very excited about the prospect of playing for them. And I was like, oh, something will come up at mid-year and he just won't come back.
Yep. And
it just seemed like the safer projection.
And sure enough, here we are. It was a little bit like a mini Deshaun Watson thing except there's not all these other elements to it. So he can disappear quietly into the abyss and we just sort of forget about him.
Yeah. Felipe Franks. He's an offensive weapon.
We're back to Felipe Franks.
Yes.
The Saints should trade for him and put him and Taysom in the same backfield.
Exactly. That's what I'm saying.
It's spelled like Felipe, right? There's like an extra E in there.
It's interesting spelling.
Okay.
Just bring Denard Robinson back too. Just keep all the offensive weapons in one backfield.
Unstoppable offensive weapons. You don't know where they're going to line up. They're slot receivers. That's where they're going to line up. We have you on Rivers, and we haven't even touched on the staring contest between the Dolphins and the Texans.
Yeah, we should, since the trade deadline has passed us now.
Thank goodness. I can forget about this whole thing for another 3 months.
What was it like for you covering the Texans? Was it like you have to check your text messages every 30 seconds, like for wake up and at 6 and check them first thing? What was it like?
No, because I had a pretty good indication from about Sunday on that this wasn't going to happen in a real form. It's really hard to kind of do what they wanted to do with Deshaun in a way that makes sense in a trade deadline environment. Like you want to get, the Panthers want to talk to them, the Dolphins want to talk to them, so they got to clear that. And the logistics of trying to get a settlement going with 22 people, just quick snap to make Stephen Ross happy. That was never going to happen either. So it just kind of seemed like from the start there was a lot going against that.
When you say that, and of course we heard Steve Ross like late in the day is getting phone conversations with Deshaun. Was it one of these things where it got kicked up to the ownership level late? Because Lord knows we've been talking about this as the Dolphins as prime suitors since August. Why is it suddenly at the 11th hour that Steve Ross and possibly to a degree McNair and Easterby are getting involved in this?
I think it's basically about the settlements. Yeah. I mean, I don't think the Dolphins kind of settled on a trade and, they were like kind of, hey, maybe if you get these things settled, then, we can do this. And then at that point, they started wanting to actually talk to him.
It sounds like they were looking for an out when they say that. You know what I mean?
Yep.
Like, hey,
they wanted to tell their fans that they looked into the trade, but they didn't want to actually do the trade.
Right. Like they were looking to escape in a way that like saved face or made them look like the shrewd move. So it's like, yeah, settle the 22 cases, by Tuesday, and we're set. It doesn't sound like they came in with a realistic expectation on that.
Just really easy. Just 22 settlements.
Right. Oh my God.
You're not playing football, right? Just get to it, man.
How close is Tyrod Taylor to coming back?
every time that they talk about him in very vague terms. Like, well, we'll see what happens on the practice field. So I would give him another week personally. They do have the bye after this, so that will be 7 full weeks at that point, and then you see what you got. I do think they want to bring him back, so I do think he'll play when he's ready. But I guess we will see what happens today.
Is the sense any better there that there's any direction or plan?
No, the sense is not any better. There were maybe 40% attendance for this last game, maybe. And then they had David Culley tried out something in his little in-house thing where he's like, "Yeah, I really appreciate all the fans that stayed and cheered when it was 38-0." And then you just look at the stands and you're like, "What is this team talking about?"
It's rough, and as the GM spoke earlier, I didn't actually watch it because I knew I'd have you on. Was there anything of value coming out of that?
I mean, it's kind of the stuff we already knew at this point. They're just trying to build the culture. What does the culture mean? Well, we need to get good players who are also good people, who put the team first and do all the little things we want them to do. Not like Charles Omenihu, I guess. But it's one of those things where everything that they say is like, we're very accountable. But then you ask them well, why are we bad? Well, we're not that accountable, actually. We have to turn over the roster still. And it's not a good situation.
It's brutal.
Joey Suck says, speaking of other players who are in the news, Odell Beckham to New Orleans, maybe. The fan base needs another injured receiver to hope for now. So, yes, apparently Cleveland has asked Odell Beckham not to come to practice today. And his father is out there on Instagram posting long videos of Odell Beckham being open and Baker Mayfield not seeing him. I mean, which, the context,
right?
We have no idea what the reads were on these plays necessarily, but, and I'm sure, he's not posting videos of Odell Beckham in the trainer's room not playing.
Right.
But where is the Odell Beckham situation going? At a certain point, does Cleveland have to cut him?
They might if this is where they're at. And by the way, has it been 2 years or 3 years in Cleveland? So
I think it's 3.
It's been 3. So if you took the over on an OBJ versus Baker meltdown, you won because that over was probably set at around 6 weeks originally. So, inevitably it came to this. They were trying to shop him. He is unshoppable. I mean, there is no theoretical team out there that's like, oh yeah, please give us Odell Beckham's salary and whatever baggage he's bringing with him and his dad's Instagram in exchange for this. But it's very much a can't live with him, can't live without him, because what do you do if you can't straighten this situation out? Is the plan then Jarvis Landry and no deep receiver whatsoever? And if
they have other guys, Donovan Peoples-Jones.
Right.
They just don't, none of them are as good as Odell Beckham was in his prime.
Right.
But we're how much do you want to believe that Odell Beckham is in his prime?
He's not.
No.
He hasn't been for a couple of years. So I think the guy you're looking for might be DeSean Jackson, who has proven this season that he can still get open, still has his one dimension, and brings 25% less drama. I say 25% less drama with him along the way and baggage. You can sign him, and it doesn't become this thing where every local blogger has him in his crosshairs. And you can get what you're looking for from any of those guys, which is pretty much 1.5 40-yard catches per month and a lot of clear-out routes.
Yeah, I like DeSean Jackson to New Orleans. That actually makes a lot of sense.
Right. There's a bunch of places. The Tennessee Titans should be kicking tires on a deep threat number 3 guy, especially now if they're trying to try and figure out how to diversify their offense without Henry. That's the other news we haven't covered this week. There's so much going on.
Yeah.
So Derrick Henry out for the year, or most of it. I guess he's not necessarily out for the year. There may be a possibility he can return for the playoffs. Mm-hmm. And let's be honest, the Titans are making the playoffs at 6-2, and they have a 3-game lead or something over the Colts. Plus, they have the tiebreak. They're making the playoffs.
No, the Texans are making a run. It's for real. No.
I don't remember what our odds are right now, but there's something like 98% for the Titans. It's ridiculous.
Yeah, it's really high.
It's going to be we are going to see a really good test case now. And I mean, one test case does not proclaim whether analytics is right or not. But this is a really good test case for are running backs replaceable,
Right.
and how much does a running back really matter to the play action success? Because, I mean, they're going from Derrick Henry to Jeremy McNichols and very over-the-hill Adrian Peterson.
Right. I can't imagine this story ends with that platoon matching 100% of the production and leading the Titans to glory and getting to the AFC Championship game. I don't see how that happens. At the same time, again, we have seen plenty of situations where could Peterson have one of his big 100-yard games? Absolutely. Could McNichols replicate some of this stuff? Absolutely. I think from a play action standpoint, that's not going to change. I think you're still Tannehill's still going to be effective in that respect. It's going to be that very marginal. Like in the past, 3rd and 4 was a running down for this team with
right, and it's not with Jeremy McNichols and Adrian Peterson.
Right, 2nd and 10 as a running down for the Titans was not a foolish decision because it would often bring up 3rd and 4. That's going to change, and I think that's where you're going to see that in the margins.
I wrote the Titans chapter this year for FOA, and we wrote about the curse of 370. And I tried very hard to be like, this is a thing that actually should be on our radar, but also Derrick Henry is really, really good. Right. And I don't think we should celebrate this as like a victory lap for the curse of 370. But I mean, this is going to be a big change. I do think Adrian Peterson's a little bit better than people give him credit for. Played for some pretty bad teams over the last couple of years of his career, and doesn't have top gear speed anymore, but still a really good back.
Yeah, I think you'll see him like when the blocks are there. He will still produce. He'll probably still like finish his runs, drag some tackles, etc. That's why I say like they've got the Texans coming up. He could wind up getting like a 120-yard game against the Texans, and then we start. Running backs don't matter. See, that's like there's a little more to it than that. The other variable for this is what you said, Aaron, is they're going to make the playoffs no matter what at this point.
Yeah.
So it's not the best test case for saying, well, without Derrick Henry, this team was nothing. Well, without Derrick Henry, this team was the best team in the AFC South because look at the AFC.
The Derrick Henry, I don't know if it's the curse of 370 as much as it is the curse of 219, which is how many carries he had this year in 8 games because they were really using him. Like he had 29 carries in the 27-3 win over Kansas City and the 37-19 win over Jacksonville. Like, why on earth are you still giving Derrick Henry in the fourth quarter of those games? Why are you still giving him carries in the fourth quarter of those games?
Right, and I think he was hurt midway through this last one. Mm-hmm. And you saw him like diving for 3rd and 1 conversions and things like that, playing on a hurt foot, which is that's malfeasance. I mean, that's just foolhardy on behalf of Rabel.
The George Cook fantasy advice looking for: should he trade Lockett and AB? I'm assuming you're talking about Antonio Brown there and Gronk for Thielen and Waller.
Wow.
See, here's the thing: is that Wilson's supposed to be back in next week.
Right.
Really, I mean, let's be honest, because they're on bye this week. Wilson is probably back next week. When Wilson comes back, Lockett's value goes back up.
Right.
But I don't know what the deal is with Gronk coming back.
Wasn't he questionable or close last week?
He played this week.
Okay.
And he got back spasms.
And then they were like, well, we shouldn't have done that.
Yeah. And this is very common over the last 6 or 7 years with Gronk, is that the back spasms come in and it's week to week.
Yeah.
So whereas Waller is going to be the complete focal point for the Raiders moving forward.
Yeah. So I'm leaning towards, yes, you should do it because I think Waller will be worth a lot more than Gronk going forward. Even though Lockett should be worth more than Thielen once Lockett gets Russell Wilson back.
That makes sense.
Yep.
I own Lockett, so I certainly hope – I have Lockett in a couple of leagues.
Right.
So I certainly hope that Lockett is better when Russell Wilson comes back. That would be really nice.
Right.
Royal Will, by the way, was the guy who had that amazing wide receiver group, is 3-5. He says he's 3-5 in his league.
It's 10 teams. He said, like, why? Are there only 4 teams? No, there are 10, so that's that.
10 teams. Lamar Jackson, Aaron Jones, Edmonds, and Carter, Adams, Kupp, Williams, and Lamb, and he traded for Kelsey, hoping that Kelsey has a bit of a rebound in the second half. Is there any obvious moves you can do with this team? I don't know, because I doubt that there's any players out there on the waiver wire that are going to be as good as Edmonds or Carter.
Right.
I mean, if you can trade a wide receiver for a running back on that team, like that, Aaron Jones is great, but Edmonds and Carter is kind of a drop off.
Yeah, you may want to trade one of those wide receivers for a better running back. Yeah.
Right. See what you can do. And the other thing with Edmonds and Carter, you could wind up trying to go with the hot hand and going back and forth and whiffing with those two guys. Like, Carter had
isn't that the worst thing in fantasy football when you try to do and you end up with the better guy on your bench, and that's why people like best ball leagues.
Right, and that's it. 'Cause it's like, oh, it's just Thursday night. Even though it's a top defense in the Colts for run, I'm going to try Carter. He's got the hot hand. You play him. He has a bad game, and then Edmonds is going to have 2 touchdowns as a result.
But on the other hand, when you nail it, and when you have like your fantasy championship, and it's Ryan Fitzpatrick throwing 5 touchdowns, feels great.
Oh, brother. And Joey Sucks asked, what's the metric for drama? iBod, Instagram's below Odell's dad. Odell Beckham Sr. has been quiet for the last 8 years. I was unaware that this was a player in this saga.
Yeah, he's not a big baller brand kind of guy.
No.
So things must be pretty bad in Cleveland if dad is talking up. Now, he's been quieter than Tom Brady Sr.
Yeah. Tom Brady's dad is more vociferous than Odell Beckham's dad. He's hoping Will Smith will play him in a movie someday if he really pipes up a little bit. But I don't have a drama index. It seems like something I would have made over the years, but I don't have one. I have a passive aggression index for Aaron Rodgers, but I don't have a drama index for.
I believe the drama index would be referred to as the TOI.
Terrell Owens indicator.
The Terrell Owens index.
Oh my goodness.
Yeah.
I'll go back like 2005. I probably have that written in a walkthrough somewhere. But,
Royal Will, by the way, says all year players have gone off on his bench. He flipped McLaurin for Kelsey in week 3, so you've already gotten rid of a really good receiver, and you still have 4 of them. And every week I've started Mike Williams. He's given me 4 points.
All right.
Has Mike Williams been really inconsistent this year? I guess so, because he had a couple of big games where they were like, he's playing the X now, which is the position that Michael Thomas played in this same offense in New Orleans. But yeah, Mike Williams has 4 games with touchdowns and at least 80 yards.
Okay.
And 3 games with less than 30.
That's the boomer bust deep threat receiver.
Boomer bust, yeah.
Right, and that's what's going to happen there. And you're stuck with CeeDee also, where CeeDee has a backup quarterback 1 week and has 11 other weapons in his offense than every other week. So that's a hard choice as well when you've got that wide receiver grouping.
But that's a really good wide receiver grouping. I mean, McLaurin also is. I mean, McLaurin's an interesting test point for my idea that the number ones, like when you have a worse quarterback, the number ones usually still get theirs.
Yes.
Do you call this one the DeAndre Hopkins theory?
Yeah, I guess it is the DeAndre Hopkins series. DeAndre Hopkins still got his,
Yep.
Yeah, you would have, gosh, who was that kid they started? I'm about to say, who was that kid the Texans started that time? But Keenum was
Ryan Mallett.
Oh, please.
I'm thinking which other receivers did this happen with?
Tom Savage.
New Orleans, when Joe Horn was on New Orleans, it was like that. Like Joe Horn would not have very good teammates, and Aaron Brooks was his quarterback, but Joe Horn was always getting his numbers,
right?
Because he was the number 1 receiver. And when they went to a backup quarterback or something, I don't remember who was the backup to Aaron Brooks, but like Joe Horn would still get his.
It's interesting because in Seattle, it looked like Metcalf was the guy who was getting his from Geno. So I wonder if it's a type, because Hopkins was, I can go get the ball receiver.
Yeah.
Metcalf is kind of like, I'm so big, I can just catch your jump balls and your nonsense type of thing. So it seems like it has to be a type. Davante is that type.
Yes, which is another reason why Davante would be good for this week, despite Jordan Love.
Right. Von Miller trade, guys. Von Miller trade. Thoughts?
Von Miller trade. I like it.
Right.
That was interesting because there were some different reactions on Analytics Twitter. Mm-hmm. One of the reactions was there have been a lot of seasons where the best team doesn't win the Super Bowl.
Mm-hmm.
And therefore don't go for it all in 1 year. Try to have a long extended period of success where every year you have a shot at it. But I feel like their shot this year is pretty good. And and they've discovered an inefficiency in the market. Like they value veterans and rookies different than other teams, and they're going to take advantage of that to build the team they want to build, which is a team that's built around a couple of veterans with great, huge contracts who are great, huge players. And if one of those players gets injured, they are screwed.
You know who's also had a run of extended opportunities to win the Super Bowl? The Rams. Because they were there several years ago, we're a playoff team, and now are a prohibitive favorite. So the idea, like, well, this strategy doesn't work because it's an all-in strategy. The Jalen Ramsey trade was an all-in strategy. They're still here 2 years later, and so is Ramsey. Like they're doing this differently. So I would say in general, in most situations, try to build through the draft, try to be careful and judicious, and move things down the line. The Rams, like you said, have found a different way to do this. It's not like this is going to be a one and done and they're blown up. That's what we thought were going to happen with Todd Gurley and everything like that. No, they have found a way to, at least in the short term, sustain this. And I don't like this idea that saying, well, if you're the best, you might not win, so don't try to be the best. I'm sorry, I can't. I may not be analytical enough to understand that concept.
Yeah, I understand it. I don't think I agree with it, but I understand it. I feel like one of these years the Rams are going to have a couple of these players get injured, and they're going to be terrible.
Right. But there are teams
they're so top heavy.
Right, but there are teams that have taken swings and are terrible after a couple of injuries anyway. They've not had these opportunities that the Rams have put themselves in the position to have.
Let me quickly get to the important news here. Backup Aaron Brooks quarterback, Jeff Blake, and you had Todd Bauman, and you had Jake Delhomme.
That's a eclectic mix of dudes. Jeff Blake had a couple of great years for the Bengals.
Yeah. Delhomme became a great quarterback later.
Wikipedia says Tom Bauman was a person who played in the NFL.
Blake always stands out to me as the first African-American mediocre quarterback.
Controversial, but
one of the classic ideas about the sort of sports getting over their racism,
right,
is it was easy to go to the Negro Leagues and sign Monty Irvin and Henry Aaron and Willie Mays.
Right.
But then often, like baseball teams in the 60s would have two black guys on the team, the superstar and his roommate.
Mm-hmm.
You know that you have come far in terms of racial equality when African Americans had just as much of an opportunity to be mediocre,
right,
and to be backups,
right.
And so Jeff Blake, I think, actually holds an interesting position in the history of the African American quarterback, because he's what I remember as the first African American quarterback who was not like a superstar. He was just a guy who played quarterback, right, and that was good enough to have him on 5 different teams.
He was able to hang around for years like Joe Flacco as a backup after his viable starting career.
Yes.
I was going to say this is Tony Banks' erasure, but actually Tony Banks came in 2 years later.
Yes, Tony Banks is later than Jeff Blake.
It was later, and Banks did have a long career as a backup. But you're right. Prior to that, like when a Randall Cunningham's viable time as a starter ended, they sort of disappeared very quickly from the league, as if like you've been othered. You can't do this thing.
Right, and also Blake had a couple of years where he was a starter, but he was an average or below average starter, and those teams still started him. Like they were not like, let's go find a white quarterback who can be below average. So that's it's actually kind of an important milestone in removing racism from the league. Again, not that all racism is removed from the league or was when Jeff Blake was playing in 1991, but I think it's an interesting historical milestone.
My thoughts on the Von Miller trade basically come down to, are we trying to run an asset house here, or are we trying to win a championship? And I agree with you that in theory, only one team's going to win. A lot of people are going to be disappointed. Mm-hmm. So do you go for it, or do you just continue acting like you're, buying up financial assets and being like a hedge fund group or something? And I'm more of a championship kind of guy, so I definitely
fly forever.
Yes,
I don't know. Joe Sheehan's line, I think, for baseball. I mean, we don't put up pennant flags in the same way in the NFL, but the basic idea still applies. You'd rather be the Buccaneers and suck for a long time and then win a championship than be the Vikings and go 9-7 and 10-6 every year and never win a title.
Right. And that's it. When you talk about the second round picks now that they're giving away, the marginal cost at this point is
a late second round pick. It's going to be a late third round pick.
Third round, because that's all they have. And it's like, we've now established they are not going to be able to draft successfully in those years. So making that slightly worse is not as big a deal in the future as in the present, making themselves potentially significantly better in a way that can help them in the playoffs against opponents like Tom Brady, like Aaron Rodgers,
and if your program also successfully develops guys like Darius Williams kind of out of nowhere, then it's fine, isn't it?
The Rams have to be really good at signing undrafted free agents.
Right.
And that's where their depth is going to come from.
And the Patriots were good at that for 20 years. So now I don't know how sustainable it'll be for the Rams, but if you have schemes that are coherent and you have a good articulation from your head coaches down to your scouts because the coach has been there for years, the Ravens are also very good at that. So there is a method of doing that. I'm not saying they'll be fine in 3 years, but I'm saying that the risk in 3 years is completely outweighed by the potential reward here.
Yeah, flags fly forever. I like the move. I mean, and I think Von Miller still has it.
Yeah. Oh, no, he's been playing well in fits and spurts.
I mean, ankle injury the last couple of weeks, but he's still a quality pass rusher, was a quality pass rusher last year. That's absolutely a weakness for them. The other side, opposite of Leonard, is it Leonard Floyd who's one of their pass rushers? I believe.
Leonard Floyd, right?
I get him and Robert Quinn mixed up because they switched places. Quinn used to be in LA and went to Chicago, and Floyd used to be in Chicago and went to LA.
Yep, 3-syllable names, about the same age, similar gameplay style. I do the same thing. And on the other side of this, by the way, the Broncos, it's like this is the actual start of the rebuild. They were supposed to start in 2016. It's weird that it's happening in this year where they're 4-4. But it looks like that's the final surrender by the Denver Broncos. Maybe I'm misinterpreting this, and I know there was some personal drama with the team, et cetera, but it looks like this is them finally saying, George Payton, the new GM, finally saying, no, we're not trying to do it this way. We're going to go embark and do it a different way.
They're in sort of a same position as Washington looked like they would be in, although Washington is now worse than we thought they'd be, which is they're going to end up not with a good enough draft pick to take a really good quarterback, although I don't know how many really good quarterbacks there are in this draft.
Not many.
I mean, look, I'm trying not to be politically biased against the fact that there's a quarterback from Liberty, but I also think, he would have been. Where did he start? Did he start at a
Auburn.
Power 5 team?
We went over this.
He would have been recruited by a Power 5 team if he was better, but he was recruited by a Power 5 team.
Yeah, we went over this the last time I was on, I think, for sure.
Yeah, good. You're our Malik Willis expert from now on.
That and we only talk about race when you're on, Rivers. We never mention race in society until you show up. And then nothing but socio-political musings here.
Well, I mean, it doesn't matter what race they are. This year's quarterback prospects are not impressive. I mean, the guy who was supposed to be the number one prospect's been benched.
Right.
So, I mean, go back to our preseason predictions, and we were all like, the number one pick will be Spencer Rattler. No,
I didn't say that. I said it would be Kayvon Thibodeau. I want to be on the record.
You said who?
Kayvon Thibodeau.
I said Nevada. I said Nevada quarterback.
Carson
whose
Strong.
name I don't even remember, but I liked that idea that it would be somebody who would appear from out of nowhere and everybody would go, oh, Josh Allen.
Well, you might be right, but it might be Kenny Pickett over at Pittsburgh who kind of gets that helium this year.
Or Ole Miss quarterback might be the out of nowhere.
Matt Corral.
Yep. Let's just finish off with Royal Will's last questions. Would trading CeeDee Lamb and Mike Williams and Chase Edmonds be too much for Darrell Henderson? I think it would be if you start 3 wide receivers, because the value is you have 4 wide receivers. Right. So if you trade one of them, if you trade 2 of them, now you only have 2. So you lose the value of having your great wide receivers is that you need to have, if you only start 2 of them, that's fine. If you start 3 of them, then you want to keep 3 of them.
Yeah, that does seem like a lot. I like Henderson a lot as a player. But that seems like a lot to give up.
It's interesting what will happen when Akers come back. Oh, he meant Mike or CeeDee. Yes, I would trade Mike Williams and Chase Edmonds for Darrell Henderson. Yes.
Okay.
When Cam Akers comes back next year, because McVay really seems to be a guy who likes to have one stud back.
Right.
And Henderson's been really good this year. Will he go back to Akers, or will it be Henderson who's the stud back?
I don't know. It's interesting. I think Akers is a little more versatile in the receiving game. In the past, I think he was doing that because he liked motioning that running back around, like keeping the same personnel on the field, motioning him around pre-snap, doing all that stuff prescribed for Goff. So you're like, well, who's the most versatile? That'd be Akers. Now it looks more like it's like we're going 5 wide when we go 5 wide, and then we're, so and just let Stafford rake, and then when it's time to run, we put Henderson in the backfield. So I don't know. I mean, I probably lean towards Henderson right now. Akers is more versatile. Henderson's got that quick cutting ability though, that I look at and say that's the one who can make the one cut and get a big play.
Yeah, he was a backcast favorite, if I remember correctly. Henderson was. All right, folks, that does it for Wednesday. Thank you. You're welcome, Royal Will. He said, thank you for all your help trying to turn his fantasy season around. Good luck. And let me give some advice for your league and for other leagues. In my fantasy league that I do with my friends from college, we have the second half award, which is that you take all the teams that don't finish in the money, like the top 3 finish in the money, and then we take all the other teams, and whoever has the best second half of the season gets their money back.
Okay.
And that way, even if your team is 0-8, you have something to play for in the second half of the season.
Nice.
Yeah.
Second half award. That's my advice for fantasy leagues.
I like it.
We'll be back tomorrow. Mike and I will be here with JP Acosta to preview week 8. And we'll see how much big news there is between now and then that changes lines. Thank you, Rivers, for joining us.
My pleasure.
As always,
JP.
visit riversmccown.com for all your Houston Texans news. And don't forget to tweet at Rivers with hashtag read the piece so that he knows that you've actually read what he wrote.
You don't have to read it. It's okay. The Texans are bad. I get it.
You only have to read it if you are a Texans fan.
Just reach out to Rivers and say hi to him, and he needs to talk to people about things besides the Texans.
I need therapists is what I need.
Don't forget the limited time offer, folks. As pointed out in the corner of this video, only 99 cents a week for FO Plus. If you buy an annual subscription now, that's all of our fantasy research tools, all of our advanced statistics, all of our picks against the spread, all of that stuff. FO Plus, 99 cents a week. Become a Football Outsiders member now. We definitely want to see you aboard, and we want to see you guys tomorrow at 1 p.m. on all of these various video services. Until then, enjoy the football news, and we'll see you tomorrow.